Hello, everybody. It's me, Fee, or White Zulu, author of my autobiography of the same name. And welcome to another piece of my life story, this time in a small village of the Swiss Alps called Châteaudet, where I'm learning to speak French and ski. This is chapter 53, and I've called it Injury. It was just a matter of time before the inevitable happened. Just as the plaster came off Jonty's leg, I fell and damaged my left knee very badly. I'd been out with Britta one afternoon, just the two of us, in frozen, wet snow conditions. This was when the slightly slushy, wet snow had frozen into what resembled hard concrete, and had ruts left by previous skiers passing through while the snow was still soft. I was coming down a red piste at top speed when my ski caught in a deep frozen rut. My ski followed the course of the rut to the left. My always rather iffy quick-release boot clip mechanism failed, and my left leg was wrenched sideways while I carried on with the momentum. I hit the solid, rock-hard snow with a crash that brought Britta over. "What happened?" she asked in consternation. "I fell and twisted my knee, but I think I'm okay. Just help me up," I replied. But I was in agony now and couldn't move my entire left leg. "I think it might be broken," said Britta, to try and find help. It was late and the slopes were deserted. It was just us left up there. "You'll have to ski to the teleferique and then we'll get you home from there," said Britta. So, somehow, using only one ski, as my other leg was useless, and on solid ice on a red piste, I gritted my teeth through the pain, and we got to the lift. There, Britta supported me while I hopped into the lift cabin and then brought our skis in. At the bottom, there was still a 500-yard walk through the village to get home, and it was getting really dark by now. Britta dumped our skis in the locker, and then, with me using a ski pole as a crutch and hopping on my right foot while she tried to prop me up on the left, which wasn't easy as I was about a foot taller than she was, we were making our slow, painful and laborious way home when a car came slowly by. Britta flagged it down, and a young man wound down the driver's window. "Can you give us a lift?" she pleaded in French. He said nothing, but carried on driving. Then he must have looked in his rear-view mirror and, because he saw us resume the hopping, propping, lack of progress we were making, took pity on us, reversed back and helped me into the back seat. Then, with Britta in the passenger seat, he drove us the short distance to the Ancho's chalet. Madame had obviously been concerned, as we were late by now, and had been watching out for us. She came running down the path to demand why we'd taken a lift from a complete stranger. This was absolutely taboo, and she was so busy berating us both in her voluble French that it took us a few minutes to get through to her that I was in big trouble with a possible broken left leg, and the driver was just a good Samaritan. After she'd apologized and thanked him at length, She rushed me to the local hospital for x-rays. Skiing accidents are common in all the resorts, and it was a daily routine for the staff to examine yet another ski casualty. After an x-ray ascertained that my leg wasn't broken, but completely dislocated, and all the ligaments in my knee had been torn. Plus, there was also some possible cartilage damage. They strapped up my now badly swollen and rapidly blackening knee very tightly. I was to keep the strapping dry, removing it only to have a bath, and then have someone bandage it up again just as tightly. I might have been given painkillers, but I don't recall. All I knew was this was the worst agony I'd ever suffered in my life, and my knee now was the size of a beach ball and throbbed as the pain gnawed inside my knee and down the entire leg. I had a miserable and very painful few weeks, trapped upstairs alone as Jonty had been able to return to her own room now that her leg was more mobile, and she had to exercise it. She was still on crutches, though, as was I now, using them to hop to the bathroom from my bed and back. My left leg bent bandaged, dangling uselessly. I missed the company of the girls, but Jonty popped in now and again as we'd reversed roles, and she and Britta were now running errands for me. Madame brought my meals up on a tray and did the unbinding and binding of the strapping. Each time I saw my bare knee, it was more hideously swollen and even blacker than before. Over the next few weeks, it turned from black to purple to a horrible yellowish green and was still unbelievably painful. I flinched and whinged while Madame briskly rewrapped my bandage, ignoring my cries of pain. "It has to be done, and you have to be brave, ma petite," she scolded me gently in French, the only language I spoke now. I even found I was dreaming in French when I used to dream in Zulu. The only time we broke the rule was when the girls and I were alone together, and even then we didn't dare be caught by Madame, who was so strict about this language rule. After some weeks, my bandage was replaced by a pink elastic knee guard, and twice a day I had to remove it and do exercises under Madame's supervision. She was a hard taskmaster, but eventually I was able to manage the stairs and come down to join the family again. I was making slow and careful progress down the stairs to supper one Friday night, favouring my wonky knee, when a girl came running up the stairs and greeted me warmly in French with a "Bonsoir, ma petite." This was Catherine, the Ancho's daughter, 24 years old and 2 years older than her younger brother Pierre, who was Britta's boyfriend. I'd heard she'd lived down on a lakeside somewhere and was training to be a nurse. She was lovely, sweet-natured and gentle like her father, and I liked her immediately. Both Jonty and I were champing at the bit to get back onto the ski slopes, but were far from ready to be able to walk properly, never mind ski again. That was when Monsieur suggested we tried ski bobbing. We went off to the ski school offices, explained our predicaments, and were told yes, we could hire ski bobs from an outlet in the village. These contraptions looked like little wooden tricycles on which one sat. It had a short, broad ski at the back and a short, narrow one at the front, just as one would have a wheel under the handlebars. The braking and guiding system consisted of two very short skis, a fraction longer than our boots, which we attached to our ski boots in the same fashion as we would normal skis. We gave the ski bobs a try out in the main street and found them perfect. We could take them all the way to the top of the mountain in the same way we took our skis, and then go anywhere we liked, even off-piste. Jonty and I went everywhere on our ski bobs. That's how we got friendly with David Niven. I'm sure most of you of our sort of age have heard of David Niven, most famous actor, English actor, born in 1910 and died in 1983. David was an English actor, memoirist, and novelist. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance as Major Pollock in Separate Tables in 1958. Other noted roles included Squadron Leader Peter Carter in A Matter of Life and Death, Phileas Fogg in Around the World in 80 Days, Sir Charles Lytton, the Phantom, in The Pink Panther, and in fact, he played major roles in all the Pink Panther movies along with Peter Sellers, another one of his close friends. He played James Bond in Casino Royale in 1967. And he was also a friend and confidant of Winston Churchill. In 1960, David Niven moved to Châteaudet for financial reasons. Switzerland was a tax haven in those days, but I'm not sure if that's the case now. Living near expat friends that included Deborah Kerr, Peter Ustinov, and Noel Coward. A 2009 biography of Niven contained assertions based on information from his widow and a good friend of Niven that he had an affair with Princess Margaret, who was 20 years his junior. David divided his time in the 60s and 70s between Châteaudet and Cap Ferrat on the Côte d'Azur in the south of France. I'd been introduced to him by Pat Buxton, as they were good friends, of the same age and English public school background, and lived almost next door to one another. He was having dinner at the Buxtons one night. I'd been invited as well, and he'd entertained us with hilarious stories about his filming adventures, some of which ended up in his first autobiography, The Moon's a Balloon. I met him frequently out on the pistes, and he always greeted me warmly, stopped to ask how I was doing, and have a little chat about South Africa, a country which he'd visited in the past and had loved. I discovered that he spent most of his time ski bobbing, and he hooked up with Jonty and me as we whizzed down the mountain, in and out of the forests, dodging trees on these nippy and light little contraptions. Off-piste was discouraged for all but the very best skiers and instructors, and the forests were out of bounds for obvious reasons. But this became our haunt, and the three of us spent many happy days out in virgin snow and forbidden territory. Occasionally 2 young local Swiss men joined us, ski bobbing. I suspect that pretty, flirty, jaunty was really the attraction. But finally, I was mixing with boys of my own age in a non threatening environment. It was fun spending so much time with David, too, as his genial and entertaining personality wasn't an act. It was just the way he was all the time. And I think he enjoyed the company of the two impressionable young girls as well. We'd never heard his stories before and were a fresh audience, which he needed, as I think he was quite lonely. I always saw him alone without any female company, although Pat sometimes joined him skiing. I knew he'd had more than one wife, but never asked any personal questions. We simply had fun together, and it was with some reluctance that eventually Jonty and I had to trade in our ski bobs for proper skis again. I'm going to try and I've got photographs of Jonty and me on the ski bobs, and I'll see if I can get them copied. Well, that's enough for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and there's plenty more to come, particularly the mischief. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's goodbye from me, Fee. Bye-bye. That is all for the time being, and there's more to come next week. I would like to thank John Moslane for putting aside his Friday afternoons to help me produce these videos. Without him, I could not do this. I would also like to thank Sean van Vuren for his sterling work in uploading my videos to my YouTube channel, adding the photos, as well as managing my channel so professionally. If you would like to know more about my other works, I have written 5 books in all, and each one is autobiographical. Please visit my website at www.whitezulubook.com, where you will find a lot more information as well as plenty of photographs. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my life story, and there is plenty more to come. A thumbnail photo will be attached each week, and thank you so much for all your support and all the very kind remarks you make in complimenting me on my work. I really appreciate it.